This is News Forward. This week's topic, Sacramento's effort to build a replacement arena. On April 14th, anxious fans filled Sacramento's Power Balance Pavilion. Many suspected that the game between the Kings and the Los Angeles Lakers would be the last time the National Basketball Association franchise played as Sacramento's team. The game sparked an emotional outpouring for many. With the city of Anaheim attempting to lure the team away, many saw it as a sad end to the franchise's 26 years in Sacramento's capital. But in the days that followed, led by Mayor Kevin Johnson, himself a former NBA player, Sacramento boosters convinced the league to give Sacramento another year and another chance to present a viable plan to replace the city's aging arena. While many viewed this as an unequivocal win for the city and the mayor, the fundamentals are unchanged. Sacramento still doesn't have an agreed-upon plan to pay for one. Over the next 40 minutes, we'll ask the Kings to take us inside Power Balance Pavilion and show us how the arena, one of the oldest in use, is showing its age. We'll look back at some of the failed arena plans. We'll go to the rail yards where boosters hope to build a replacement arena. And we'll talk to my esteemed panel about whether this time will be any different than previous failed efforts. Forward, I'm your host, Ed Fletcher. Let's get right to it and let's meet my panel. We have Sam Amick, a NBA writer for SI.com, Marcos Bertone, a columnist for the Sacramento Bee, and Eric Hogue at News Talk 1380. Welcome, gentlemen.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
It seems like we've been talking about this for a long time. Why has this issue been so... Why has it dragged on so long, Sam? Why has it dragged on so long, Sam?
Well, I mean, it's a long list. I mean, we need a longer program for that. I think, you have so many moving parts. And if you look back to where the efforts began, roughly 10 years ago, I think the economic situation in the country was far different. The ownership situation with the Kings was different than it is now. Things are different. And I think that, you've seen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 failed attempts. And, I do think this current one is probably the most optimistic, but it's the 11th hour, as we all know, and we'll see what happens here.
I think a big reason why it was delayed up to this point is that in California, we don't have the traditional funding mechanisms for arenas. In other states, legislatures can unilaterally raise the sales tax to raise funds. That's what happened in Minnesota. It's happened in Houston and Dallas.
Indiana.
And in California, it's against the law to do that. And the politics are completely against it. And so Sacramento has been in the same spot that other California cities have. If you look at the sports landscape throughout California, the teams are either in privately financed facilities or in old ones that they hate because there's no middle ground in terms of having a publicly financed arena. It's tough to get the vote and it's tough to get the support for it.
Yeah, I'd say about 3 things in the equation here. One might be the fact of just a lack of belief that something can be done. For a number of years, it was just we'll talk about it, but nobody really believed. There was no great passion to get something done. And a part of that is nostalgia. There's many people in this city who believe, hey, we don't want an arena. We want to go back to the old Sacramento, and they have what they have to play in now, and we don't want to be a part of that. And secondarily, I think just lack of leadership. There hasn't been real good leadership over the past 7, 8, 10 years to spearhead something outside of the owners of the Kings. So this equation a little bit different. Desperate people do and begin to say and talk about things that are needed to be done, and there has been some leadership in this equation.
We'll talk about leadership some more, but first let's talk about sort of a threshold question. A lot of people have been talking about where to put the arena, how much it's going to cost, and who's going to pay for it. But I think a lot of voters are still sort of hung up on, do we need an arena? So we're going to take a look at what some of the proponents of replacing Arco Arena, or now Power Balance Pavilion, have to say about it. This is a video shot by Andy Alfaro, former photographer and videographer at the Bee. And I think some of you guys have been there and have seen what it looks like in there, but it's something that I think a lot of people still struggle with. Let's go to the video.
Here we are at one main entrance, and there's 2 or 3 big features I would point out here. It's attractive, it's nicely landscaped, but you really can't see where you're going. It's pretty much solid wall. It's not a lot of glass. And if you look at a new arena, what we would really strongly advocate would be a lot of glass, and the building is kind of like a lantern. And so when you approach it or you drive by on the freeway or whatever, you know whether there's something going on in the building that night or not. You get the sense of the activity. You see the people circulating within the building. For the people inside the building, they're able to look out. They can see, oh, I'm on the north side. Okay, the river's that way. I know I'm in Sacramento. I can see the downtown skyline. I mean, that you couldn't do that here. That's fundamentally different. If you continue the thinking from what I said outside, and you think about what you see from here, this is not what I would consider to be the scale of a big major lobby. It does have glass, it does have windows, you can see the people coming in, but to compare with newer arenas that are built, you would tend to see a larger scale space, probably a multi-story space. In a single main lobby, we're able to concentrate all those activities in a much more dramatic space. Now, all of that contributes to that sense of heightened anticipation and just excitement about the event and a sense of community. In a way, think of it as kind of the community's living room, where thousands of people all come together as they move in and they assemble on the way out of an event. Keep in mind, we haven't started designing the Sacramento Kings new arena yet, so we're talking in terms of, say, the last 5 buildings built around the country and how they compare to this generation or even in this building. And we would look to make any kind of a space like this to be as multi-purpose as it can be, so that you could potentially get revenue from that space and just increase the utilization of it. We would design the seating very differently. You know, this has probably never been done. At least I've never seen it done like this. You'd never do it again. This building is very labor consuming to convert and very limiting in how you can even convert.
You might have a show load in. Okay, you've got a game, it's Friday night, but we've got a big concert on Saturday. You saw the stages over here. We don't have a dock where you could be loading in underneath or outside, where you could have the first 1 or 2 trucks in and unloaded for the show that's going to start to load in at 2 a.m. when the court is pulled up. So that can be happening at the same time. Right now, that can't happen here.
Back to that issue of what can we do to meaningfully improve the fan experience and increase that sense of anticipation. One of our fundamental goals in planning an arena would be to do everything we can to get people to want to come early and stay late, spend the absolute maximum time they can on site.
Welcome back. Sam, let me ask you first. You've been to many arenas around the country. How does ARCO sort of compare to other arenas? And then I'll ask the other gentleman to sort of chime in with, does the arena need replacing?
It doesn't compare at all. I mean, in my previous job covering the Kings for the B, you know, it afforded me the chance to go around the country and see all other 29 venues. And, you know, Sacramento was very slow to pick up on the fact that ARCO needed replacing. You know, when it was built in '88, it was one of the cheapest facilities at that time, built on the cheap in '88. Fast forward, you know, 20 years, and here we are, more than 20 years. It's not even close, and the arenas that compare in terms of how bad they are just the ones that are far more nostalgic than ARCO Arena. You know, Madison Square Garden in New York, which is currently having a huge renovation. You know, you can almost understand, okay, that's the Garden. It took them a little while to look at, upgrading that. But it's far and away the worst arena in the league, and it's just something where it's black and white at this point. If you want to be part of the NBA picture, and if you want your city to be engaged in part of this, you have to have a new arena.
ARCO Arena was built in the last days of the old NBA, before the NBA became this major international entity. And Greg Lukenbill, who built the arena, and I'm always hesitant to knock it because he did an amazing thing to bring the Kings to Sacramento and really not disturb the taxpayers at all, and get the first arena and then the second arena built on a budget. And it is what it is. I mean, he got the team here, and that's the way it penciled, that's the way it worked. The problem was, about a year or two later, the Palace of Auburn Hills in north of Detroit was built, completely changed the dynamic of NBA arenas, and the world has changed since then. And so ARC Arena became almost obsolete 2 years into its existence. The great thing is that it helped bring the Kings to Sacramento. The unfortunate part was that it was already out of step, 2 years into its lifespan, and we've been trying to figure it out since then.
It's as if you get married, you fall in love, and you get married, and you buy your first home. It's a starter home, and that's what it was. I mean, the team arrived, and they built it to start things here in Sacramento. I don't think anybody said then that this is going to be the arena we're going to live in for the next 30, 35 years. So that marriage is down the road, and it's time for the home to pick up a little bit. I mean, some stainless in the kitchen would be nice versus just the old tile that's been chipping away. That's the arena side. When you're talking about the basketball team or the business of basketball, it's outdated compared to the rest of the arenas in the league. When you're talking about concerts or events like Cirque du Soleil, you can't see, you can't hear, you can't see. There's not a great seat in the upper deck to enjoy anything like that. And that's why the conversation needs to dovetail from just an arena to a sports and entertainment complex and something of a magnet for the city and not just for the Maloofs and the Kings themselves.
Are voters convinced of that? Do they know that their arena isn't very good?
Are the voters convinced that the arena is not good? Those who attend the game, yes. Those who go to a concert, I think they do. They understand that things have to change. Is that a majority of people right now? That'd be a tough call. We probably have to do some research to find out and see if a majority of people believe it's too outdated, too old. There's a little pushback on this too. Those team owners are rich. Those players make a lot of money. What do you mean I got to pay or we got to build a brand new home for them to play in? Until you understand the economics of it. One final point on the arena. If you're looking at the amenities of Arco or Power Balance Pavilion right now, you can buy the tickets to go see the team play, but if you're an owner of the team, you're not making any money because you make money on the amenity, on the surrounding brick and mortar of the arena, not just ticket sales.
Well, I think people are coalescing behind the idea that there is a need for a new facility, and particularly one, if it was anchored in the downtown, to be a catalyst, either in the rail yards, and that's where the discussion is now on the rail yards. Another possibility, if the discussion ever went in this direction, is where the current Westfield Mall is. That whole area of downtown has so many dead spots in it that an arena could sort of lift the tide and generate other investment around the area, which downtown arenas in other markets have done. Sam has certainly seen that, not just arenas, but stadiums have done that as well. And so what we get stuck on is, okay, how are you going to pay for it? And how much of it is going to go to the Maloofs? And what's optimistic about this current process is that it's going to rely heavily on a private investor to come in and run it. And there will be a role to play for the city to make decisions, but it's going to be heavy private as well. And I do think that the politics are working in the direction that we need this.
And to both of your points, it truly is about more than the Kings. 41 nights a year is what you're talking about, that sports team occupying that venue. And, the concerts, the writing's already on the wall. The NCAA has already pulled out. They don't want any part of being in Sacramento. The concerts, artists like Black Eyed Peas, Lady Gaga, all these folks that people want to go see are looking at that map, and they're starting to go around Sacramento. And so, I think public support, and do people believe it? If you don't believe it now, I don't think you ever will. That part, to me, is already established.